All right, this is not the last interview. Today is Sunday, May 27th, 2018. I am Daniel Smith, 42 years old, about to, just ask my mom some questions about various things. Say hello, Mother.
Hello, and happy birthday to my May birthday son, who was my most considerate son about being born. And he was born at 9:30 at night, and I got to watch the news. So very quick birth, and he was very considerate about that.
So would you say I'm the most considerate in general of all your children?
Well, you're one of them. Yeah, you're one of them.
Speaking of children, what were you like as a child?
I was a tomboy, had to be out doing stuff all the time, couldn't be confined, didn't like being in the house much at all, and loved being with animals and in nature, exploring.
Talk to me about your cow.
My cow was my friend. She was a great friend. Her name was Constance Henrietta, Connie for short, and she was a Guernsey cow that gave the best milk and cream. And she had little horns, and she was kind of a small cow, and bangs, which I combed every day, and I'd feed her M&Ms. I always hoped for chocolate milk, but never got it. And she was just a good pet. We'd play, and if she was mad at me for some reason, I'd have to go out and reassure her that everything was fine before she let my dad milk her. She wouldn't let the milk come down.
That's how you knew she was mad, because she wouldn't let your dad milk her?
She wouldn't let the milk release. And he would say, "Come and talk to her, Karen." So I'd have to go out and soothe her, and she was a good cow.
What games did you play when you said you played
Oh,
with her?
well, I would take her horns and shake them a little bit and then run and jump in the hay loft. And it was low enough into the hay where they ate it. And she'd come running after me like she was mad, and then she'd go like this with her horns and just pretend. And then, a lot of times I just go out in the evening and lay with her, and in the pasture with the moon and the stars. She'd be laying down in the grass, and I'd lay down beside her. She was just a really good cow, good friend.
That's a very peaceful memory.
And then my uncle shot her.
She had horns?
Yeah, she had little horns. They weren't very
Now, was there ever any accidents or incidents where her horns stuck you, or did she ever hurt you on accident?
She wasn't serious about it,
Okay.
So, no. So, yep. So
well,
we
that's
had
nice.
fun.
That's a very good memory.
Mm-hmm.
What else did you do for fun besides play with your cow? Would you go fishing? You said you like to be
Fishing,
outdoors a lot.
Yeah, I would go fishing a lot of times. Ooh, I remember one time I was fishing with my brother Benny, and I was sitting there with a pole in the water. We had some fish on a stringer. Here comes this cottonmouth moccasin, because they like to eat fish too.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get our fish, and I'm terrified of snakes, but that thing was pretty good sized. And so that ruined that fishing trip. And but I would go down to Sand Creek, and sometimes just fish, and most of the time I didn't catch anything.
What was the biggest fish you ever caught?
Not much, little bluegill mostly.
That was
Nothing
it?
like the one you caught, which
Yeah,
was
that
pretty
was
good.
crazy. That was crazy that day.
That was how much? 16?
I think it was 16 pounds, but it turned out it was pregnant. The fish was pregnant. That's why it was so big.
Oh, really?
Because we found eggs inside of it. Yeah.
Still counts.
Oh, of course it still counts.
In
totally.
fact, the roe is expensive anymore, even if it is a carp roe.
Yeah. Now, I remember you told me once that you were first exposed to one of your favorite foods, shrimp. But I don't remember who exposed you to it.
Oh,
They
that-
gave you, you said they took you to a place, then bought you your first shrimp basket.
Yes. That was my sister's first husband, Glenn. And I was always hanging. He was like a big brother, and I was always hanging out with him and Helen. So, come on, you can go with us. So we went to this place called Esposito's. And they had a shrimp basket and fries, and I thought I had never eaten anything so good in my life, and it was delicious. And the atmosphere was nice, and I was out with a couple of older people, So I felt like a big hot shot. And that really is when I started, first time I ever had it.
How old were you?
I would say Probably about 14 or
14.
so at that time, yeah.
What are some other memorable dining experiences? Maybe something unique that not everybody has done, or perhaps
Well,
something more intimate with the family setting.
Yeah.
What do you have to share
I
with
can
us?
say a lot. I remember sometimes it was a big treat because my mom would let me go grocery shopping with her as a child, and I'd go with her to the grocery store, and then she'd have a little extra money. We'd go across the street to the Wigwam, which is not unique to you guys, but it was unique to a lot of other people. And we'd have hamburgers for lunch and just have a good. And so that was very special to me, and it was usually just me, and that was nice, being the youngest of 7. And of course, holiday meals and walking home from school to have lunch, and my mom would have, talk, and we'd have conversations, and so that was nice. And then all the holiday meals, big holiday meals, and usually so many people would come. My dad would invite strange people that you'd never believe to a lot of our meals, and so I met a lot of strange people. I spoke with the guy that whistled on one of our interviews. I thought he was the most amazing person I ever saw. He whistled really good, but he had to hold his ears like this to do it.
Weird.
That was our dinner entertainment.
Well, at least it's... Now, you mentioned you walked home from school to eat lunch.
Yeah,
You had
I did.
enough time
Well,
to walk home and
I-
eat lunch and walk back?
I did. It took me just, about... Well, it's from where the dance academy is now,
Uh-huh.
down to my dad's old place. So
That's a hike.
it is a hike. It was about a mile.
But you had enough time to do that,
Mhm.
eat, and still talk with your
Yeah.
mom
Mhm.
and walk back to school.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they
I-
gave you, what, 30 minutes for lunch?
Well, we must have had a little bit more time than that because I was always on time, never had the tardy, so it
Uh-huh.
must have been enough time to do it.
It had to be 30 minutes.
Yeah.
How much time do you think they give kids to eat today?
Well, not enough, about 20 minutes, I
10
think.
minutes.
Well, no wonder I
They
have
give
to
'em-
eat so fast when I go to lunch with
They give them
Sage.
10 minutes to eat.
That's not enough.
And it's basically the kids
time.
are stuffing their faces so they can get done in enough time to get back to class. And to me, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
What else? Just eat.
That's I guess. But I mean, you want the kids to have a little more time than 10 minutes. Okay, take a 10-minute lunch and tell me how fun it is next time you go to
Yeah,
lunch.
you'd have to really be.
Eat.
I've done it with her, and I know it's.
I just think it's ridiculous.
Well,
Well, let's talk about your school a little bit. How would you describe, what kind of school did you go
Well,
to?
it was a big 2-story brick thing, and part of it still exists. It was North Ward, and it was great. It was, they had a big coal burning boiler when I was a kid, and it always had enough heat, but it always had that smell to it too, And
They ever run out of coal?
no, because they had a big pile of it next to the school that when it snowed, we'd go play King of the Mountain on that thing.
Oh.
So that was fun.
You ever come back all black?
Well, most of the time the snow was enough, but I'm sure we had some stuff on us. The kids don't notice some of it though, And the teachers were all pretty strict, but I was just telling Susan the other day when I went to the doctor, and she wanted to stay while I was getting weighed, and I said, you guys go on, I said, I'm going to tell you why, because when I was a kid in school, they used to bring every year, the teachers would bring the scale into the classroom. We stood in front of the whole classroom and got weighed. And I was a chubby kid.
Why?
That's the way they did it.
That's really weird.
And it was very embarrassing if you had a little chubsky to you, And so,
Yeah, because kids are not nice.
no.
No, they're not.
So that's why it really stuck with me. So
Move
that's
on.
yeah, and they did, yeah. So that wasn't too much fun, but we had good teachers, and we had one teacher I remember I think it was 3rd grade, and all the boys called her Spitball because she would constantly she'd get a lot of saliva going and throw it out at you while she was teaching,
So you tended to sit in the back row in her class, I imagine.
I was probably in the second row, but I didn't get blasted too much. But she was a good teacher, and I learned a lot, especially in English from her.
Elaborate on that. It would like build up.
Yeah, and it would just, how people spit sometimes when they talk, and she had a lot of it and be coming out here and flying at you. And
Little kids in the front row.
yeah,
The bobbing and weaving.
that's what they called her, spitball.
That's wild.
And yeah.
Who was your BFF? Back
Well,
in
I
those
had
days?
mostly my across the street neighbor was my BFF, but there was a few in school that you'd hang out with at recess, and of course I loved playing baseball, so everybody wanted me to be on their team because I really could hit them. I mean, I could really slug them. So we'd go out and play for recess with that, and I'd get up to bat, and this really made me feel good. They go, "You better back up," So, because I knew I was going to hit it good. And there was a few friends, mostly, little girls that, I'd go maybe to their house after school. One was named Connie Hoy, and she was a nice girl. And but mostly I lived pretty far on the other side of town, so it was just me and Posey, my neighbor,
Mm-hmm. Did you name your cow Connie after this girl, Connie?
No, I just like the name.
You just like the name Connie?
Yeah, It sounded formal.
Constance.
Would like you to meet my cow, Constance.
Now you talked about playing baseball at recess, right?
Yeah.
Did they have extracurricular sports, organized sports and stuff back then where you could play outside of school?
That would be in the upper grades.
Okay.
They didn't have them in this elementary school.
In elementary. So
No,
did you play any of those?
No, I
Not at
wasn't
all?
much into that, no.
But you were good at baseball.
Yeah,
But you just didn't care to
I just
pursue.
didn't want to get into the team stuff,
Okay. That's understandable.
Yeah.
You said your teachers were pretty strict. Was there one that stands out as being the most strict overall?
Probably Spitball. You didn't mess around in her class, and she knew everybody had a nickname for her,
She knew her nickname?
I think she did, because how could you not,
That's true.
And her last name was Anderson, so,
Spitball Anderson.
yeah.
That's a great name.
That is a great name.
What was her first name?
I don't even know.
Really?
It was always Mrs. Anderson or Old Lady
Spitball.
Spitball.
Old Lady Spitball.
She had a bun in the back of her hair. She was a typical old-fashioned school teacher. And
Well, stereotypes exist for a reason because
I learned
they're
a lot
real.
from her. She was
Yeah, that's
good with English. I learned a great limerick from her because I didn't know what limericks were until I was in her class.
Do you remember it?
I do, and I love it.
What is it?
It was Ogden Nash, and there was a young girl from Old Natchez whose clothing was always in patches, and when the question arose on the side of her clothes, she drawled, "When I itches, I scratches."
Do you have to say drawled?
Yeah,
Is that
you
part
have
of it?
to because she was from Natchez.
Drawl.
Yeah.
All right. So outside of school, when it was summertime, what were some of your favorite things to do in summer?
Outside. I would go
Just
swimming
always
pool. We had a
outside.
swimming pool. It was not as nice as it is now.
But
it
there was a pool there.
Yeah, we'd go down there and go swimming. I'd always try to get a root beer popsicle afterwards, eat it on the way home. And I never swam real good, but I had a lot of fun there anyway, And Aunt Helen would go because she was a teenager looking for a little attention, and so she didn't do much swimming, but a lot of the boys noticed her. She was real pretty.
Do a lot of sunbathing, I imagine, just showing off.
Yeah, a lot of sitting on towels. And
How much older is she than you?
5 years.
5 years. Did you guys hang out a lot?
Pretty much, yeah. She pretty much took care of me. We walked to go see the movies together, on Friday night.
And the movies were here.
Yeah, we had a movie
when there
here,
was a
and it was 10 cents, I think 15 cents to get in, and 10 cents for popcorn.
Was that the old theater?
Yeah, the old theater.
I only went there once, I think.
Yeah.
We saw an Alfred Hitchcock movie there, North by Northwest.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
There's a famous crop dusting scene that is in that movie that I remember. And I don't know if you were with us, though. I'm certain Susan was there. Obviously, I know I went. I don't even think you guys went with us. I think we went on our own.
Really? You and Susan?
Yeah, it wasn't just me. It was me and somebody else, and I swear it was Susan. And I thought you were there, but maybe not. I mean, as kids, you're watching North by Northwest.
Yeah.
No, but it was a movie. It was like something to do.
We always had cowboys and Indians.
Yeah, what kind of movies did you watch there?
Bud Abbott and Lou Costello were my favorite.
Abbott and Costello, it's classic.
I loved them, and they always scared the pea diddly out of me, but the werewolf things and the spooky things they got into and everything, but they were so funny. So I loved their movies and the cowboy movies, and
They weren't always comedians.
yeah, they were funny in the movies.
Even those movies were funny where like Abbott and Costello meet the Wolfman, stuff like that,
Yeah.
remember? Like the
Yeah.
old school stuff. Did you ever get into like the old-timey monster movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Oh
stuff
yes,
like that?
oh you betcha. That was in the 50s, and Martian, the Men from Mars, I think it was. And Uncle Benny was just studying to be a rocket scientist, so of course he was all interested in discussing the Martian thing with me because he liked science fiction, and he was beginning to think there was other people,
Mm-hmm.
and other planets. So we discussed that a lot. And yeah, Aunt Helen, we just went everywhere. Friday nights, we walked together, and sometimes Saturday afternoons we go there. She was always made sure I was okay.
That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's very nice. And you're still close today.
Yep, we are.
Did you still have to be at least 16 before you could drive a car? I mean,
Yeah.
so is that how old you were when you learned how to
Your
drive?
father taught me how to drive with the car.
So tell me, I remember his approach when he taught me how to drive. How was his approach when he taught you how
This
to
was
drive?
real interesting because we had a car that it would stop all the time. You had to push it to start it because it had gear shift.
Oh,
So, of course, I was always stopping it because I wasn't used to the clutch.
yeah.
So, if he was cussing, he was outside doing it, pushing the car.
I can totally see that happening. Absolutely.
And I learned how to drive with that kind of a car, and I actually learned how to drive. So, he taught me, and I got my license. And
Now, when he took me out, he taught me on gravel.
well, this was in California.
So there's no gravel. He taught me, he forced me to drive on gravel in a stick shift. And it wasn't very fun.
No, it's
But
hard.
I learned your way is much funnier. And I can just see him out there, God! And he's trying to push it from the back.
But think of it from a perspective that that's your girlfriend.
Exactly.
That's your girlfriend. Oh, she's worth it.
Yep,
Worth it.
she's
At the
worth it.
time, I was his wife, too.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
So
Because they got married.
that made it even worse. He couldn't say too much.
Now, one thing that you've told me that I found hilarious, and I don't know if this is in here or if it's already been asked, but I'm going to touch on it anyway, is that before he proposed to you, he was very proud of this. Was it a Blue Cross card?
It was.
What was that card?
It was a Blue Cross insurance card.
And he really felt compelled to show that to your
That
father.
was the one thing he had to impress my dad.
That was
with.
it.
That was it because he had a lot of work history. Let's put it that way.
Uh-huh.
And this job had a little bit of benefit to it, so he wanted to make sure he knew that and what he was doing. And he didn't have a whole lot else to impress him with.
Describe your dad's reaction upon our father
my dad
showing
was
him
the kind
that.
of guy that would kind of I knew he was putting on when he was acting impressed,
Oh, so he was just
but he tried to, but it was kind of in a kidding way that we knew it was
Uh-huh.
kidding, but I think your dad thought it was pretty
sincere. But he
Yeah.
was being a bit smarmy, perhaps.
Yeah. So
How do you feel about that? The look on your face, you're like you felt bad for Dad.
I did because
Yeah.
I knew what he was going through.
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of stories to my dad in those days, so I knew his responses to just about everything.
Yeah, most suitors, have either wealth or possessions or assets or something to impress the parents, and just for him to have a Blue Cross insurance card, to be so proud of
And
it.
he pulled it out right off the bat
Yeah.
to show him. And of course, and I could tell my dad was cracking up a little bit about it.
I would be cracking up as well.
Oh, I wish he was here. I could ask him about it.
Oh, I'd love to.
Both dad and grandma.
I would love to get that side, that
Oh.
story.
They didn't always get along either. They had, oh boy, they had some times.
Talk about that a little bit, if you
Well,
would.
like one time, my dad, my dad had this Cadillac, but he didn't drive very well. So he had, if we ever went anywhere, Frank would take him.
Yeah.
And so we went to San Diego to see Bill and Francis when they were stationed down there. And it was my mother and me and your dad and Grandpa. And your dad was sitting in the front seat, and your dad was driving on the way back. And we'd already been down there. And of course, my dad had a little bit to drink with my brother. And then on the way, everybody was already, probably had gotten on everybody's nerves already, at visiting. So on the way back, my mom and I were in the back seat, and little Shirley, she was little at the time, Bill's, one of his daughters wanted to come back and spend time with Grandma and Grandpa. So she was in the back seat with my mother and me. And on the way home, they got into an argument about something he was doing in his driving, and it made your dad furious. And my dad was furious because he thought he knew what he was talking about driving, and your dad thought, what am I driving your car for if you think I'm whatever. So then all of a sudden, your dad and my dad were going to duke it out. He was going to pull over, let's have this out right now, And so I thought, oh my gosh. So your grandmother always had the right stuff. She said, oh, okay, well, let's see. You and Frank can get out and fight, and Karen and I will get out and fight, and then Shirley and I will get out and fight for a little while. She was a little girl, And she said, then everybody will be happy, right? So that they thought about that and cooled it down, and they shut up and drove home in silence then. She always had the right words to say. She knew how to handle my dad.
Wasn't Grandpa a boxer?
Well, no, but he had boxing gloves, and if any of his boys decided he didn't know what he was talking about, they'd go settle it outside. And I mean, Uncle Benny said, okay, let's go, and he knocked him down.
Who knocks you down?
Benny knocked my dad down.
Oh.
He took the gloves off and left.
So he actually used the gloves?
Oh, yeah.
And he then took the gloves with him?
No, he took them
he
off.
took them off and then just left.
And left. He was not going to stick around.
Like a
further.
rapper dropping the mic, just...
That's it. And he wasn't going to stick around for the consequences on that one,
Yeah.
So.
What do you think the consequences would have been?
Oh, he'd have gotten knocked on his butt.
He wouldn't have just respect and then...
Oh, no. Nope. Not with my Irish dad.
Yeah.
So that's the way he settled things. And he's gotten a lot of fights. I remember him coming home from the bars on Friday night. He'd be here in town, and he'd have a big old black eye, and my mom would get steak out to put on it. I don't know what the steak was supposed to do, but...
I don't either, really. You just ruined a good steak.
I love that.
You just ruined a good steak. Now, he didn't ever get in fights with you physically, did he?
No, No.
As a child?
No, I never got a spanking as a child.
Never got a spanking as a child?
I always figured I needed one.
Humble. That's humility at its finest.
I needed it bad. I had a smart mouth and a rebellious spirit.
So how would he discipline you then? Or who was the stricter parent? Two questions.
Well, my mother.
Your mother was more strict?
Yeah, she would deal with me with one look.
And that's
That was
it?
Yeah.
Did she ever spank you or anything?
Nope.
Neither of them?
Nope.
With her eyes, she did.
Well,
She did.
yeah.
I mean, she could have killed with her eyes. And I knew what it was going to be,
So what was her form of discipline? What
Her
was her
form of
go-to?
discipline was, you are disappointing me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to let you know about it.
So more emotional?
Oh,
and-
yeah. I did not want to disappoint her. And my dad, his was always, he'd, get a little bit mad and upset about it. Most of the time, though, he'd let things go.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was just an easy way for him to deal with things.
Did you ever take advantage of that?
Oh, always.
I'm sure. Most kids do.
Yeah,
Oh, always.
yeah.
Nah, he won't care, sort of thing.
Yeah, I know it's like I can get around it, There are some things you didn't get around. I remember when I would cause a lot of problems and worry my mother. Your mother and I have been together all these years, and you are not going to make her this unhappy, And then, of course, he knew that would get to me, so.
That's
Yeah.
kind of powerful.
Oh, boy, yeah.
Wow.
So.
What's one of the biggest blowouts that you ever had with your parents? One of the biggest fights? Or what's one of the worst things that you've done to, say, make them unhappy or upset that sticks out in your mind?
I think it's when I ran away. I took off with a friend of mine. This was when I was 15. And we were out late, and then I knew that if we came home, I would really get it. So we were with these Marines, and they said, well, come on, let's go back to San Diego. So, because they were stationed in Oceanside. So we went down there. We got a motel room. They went back to their base, and we got deserted. First of all, this guy was going to marry me. He was from Texas, and took me to Tijuana, but there was something to do with how he wasn't able to get a license, and we weren't able to get married. So that was help from God, I'll tell you. So they came back and in the motel room. That was the end of seeing them. And then somehow somebody else got tangled up with us, and we were at a drive-in. We had been gone for 5 days. We were changing sheets in motels for cheese sandwich with mustard.
I was going to ask about money. Did you have any money?
We didn't, but we were kids, and people saw that. We did a lot of walking. And so we were in some of these other Marines, and we were in the back of their car getting a hamburger to drive in. And somehow somebody had gotten wind of that we were in that area, because here comes the cops in. And they stopped right by the car, and out comes this girl I'm with, her dad. She had long black hair. And he comes up to the car, and the cops talk to the guys, and they're like, what? Because they weren't even involved with the other people. And so this guy, her dad, Sandy's dad, grabbed her by the hair and pulled her out of that car. And he said, you are coming home. So there we were. We got to go to the police station. Then I had to go home and see my mom and dad. Oh, boy.
I bet they were pissed.
Oh, they were more relieved than anything
I
else.
suppose as a parent, that's true.
Yeah. And so once again, no repercussions. We're glad to have you here. Don't ever do that again. You know how scared we were. And I was on probation for a while.
Probation, what did that mean?
I had to go see a probation officer.
Oh, you mean actual probation, not like parental
Yeah.
probation,
Yeah.
but legal probation.
Yeah, because we had to go to the police station, and they did all the police stuff, and down there. And so I learned my lesson from that one.
Was that your first time in a police station?
Yep, for whatever I had to.
How'd that make you feel?
I felt terrible. I was scared to death, Glad to be found, if you want to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I really don't think we'd have gone. I think we could have been in real trouble.
What was your first, not your first, excuse me, what was your parents' first reaction when they saw you come home from that
hug.
incident? A hug? Wow, good parents. But no repercussions from them, you
Of
said.
course, you're not allowed to go out, and that's how I met your dad. I wasn't allowed to go out, me and my stupid rebellious spirit. So it was Halloween, coming on Halloween, and I wanted to go out with Sandy again. So she said, well, let's just say we're going to a party. I said, okay. Now, I told him, well, it's just a Halloween party, can I at least go to that? Because I was supposed to not be doing much. Well, okay, you can go to that. So the first thing we did, go down and hang out we hung out at. Here comes your dad in with this other guy, and that's how I met your dad. Yeah. And
Where was this at?
It was in Pomona.
At the Halloween party?
No, there was
No?
no Halloween party.
Oh, you just made that
Just
up.
a total lie. I was such a I mean, really, such a jerk. Like,
So where was this place that you met our
well,
father?
it was usually we hung out at Holt's Cafe, but this one was in town, and it had a good jukebox where you could put a lot of coins in and hear good music, and they had pretty good food, and it was a little seedier, so it made you feel like you were someplace you shouldn't be, you know. So we were sitting in there having a Coke, and here they come in, listen to music, and here they come in and introduce themselves, and off we go to go out in their car and ride around and go to this guy's house and dance. We danced and had a good time. And
So you just the second you met him, you just agreed to get in his car and go to this guy's house.
I'm telling you, I was a rebel, seriously. You wouldn't believe it. I just cringe at some of the things I did.
What was he wearing?
Just probably, he liked to wear those chinos, he called them. They're like Dockers, they're like khakis, you know. And
Did he have
shirt.
Did he have cigarettes?
Oh, well, I was smoking in those days.
You were?
Yeah. So yeah, we were all smoking. I was, 15 years old, and what a mess. So we went out to this guy's place, and we were dancing and having a good time, and that's the night your dad proposed to me.
Just right then?
Yeah. So I said, sure, why not? After all I'd been through, I thought he was kidding. I said, sure, yeah, all these guys that I just been dealing with. I thought, yeah, you're not going to get me on this one, So I went along with them, yeah. So then he was really serious about it. And I started thinking, he's a pretty nice guy. Maybe we'll actually do okay, So
How did he propose to you?
he said, let's get married.
That was it? No down on
Yeah.
one knee? I'm
No,
sure he didn't have a ring, obviously.
No, but he had one within the next week or so. And so there I was, standing him up on the next day on the date he was supposed to have. And he remembered Aunt Helen's place because he'd been there, and he knew them, and he got the address of my dad's from there, and that's where the Blue Cross card came out. So
How many days between you meeting him and the Blue Cross encounter would you say was
it was
a week?
Well, I would say it was the next day. I stood him up, and that's when he came up. He found out where I lived and walked. Yeah, and he had no car.
Oh, it was his buddy's car that you got into that night?
And he was driving, so he walked all over town to find me.
His buddy's car, he was driving.
That he was
No,
driving.
he wasn't driving. Their buddy was driving, yeah. So, yep, so that's how that one went. Then we were engaged on Thanksgiving Day and announced it. And, of course, I'm 15 years old, just got through doing all this stuff, and my mom and dad go, all right, we'll give this one a try, Maybe this will settle her down, and it did.
And it did. It settled you down.
Yeah.
And how long were you married before you had your first, your first would have been the first child you adopted?
Yeah, and that was 8 years.
So how many years were you married until you adopted Paul?
8 years.
8 years, okay.
Yep, I was 24.
Okay.
And we adopted him, and then 2 years later, got Jill. In between, we bought a house.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nice house, and we got it all set up nice.
And this house was in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
All this happened in California. All you guys were born in California.
Right,
so,
I remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you moved here because, now initially, talk to me about why you moved here.
Well, my mom and
To
dad moved here to retire. And my dad just talked this place up.
From where?
From California.
Really?
Yeah, they lived down there before we moved out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I moved from there at 12 years old and moved out to California. And so they came back here because he wanted to retire back here, and he loved to be thinking about Nebraska. Talked to my dad about it. And so we came back here on vacation to see him, and that did it. He just loved this place. He fell in love with this state. So it took him 7 years to talk me into it, but we moved back. So.
And just for some clarity, you were born in Wahoo.
Yeah, I was born in the old hospital in Wahoo.
But you moved out. Your family moved out to California because of a job opportunity.
Yeah, because
for your
he
father?
lost his job here.
Right.
And things were tough. It was like a recession time. So we went out there, and Uncle Benny got him a job at General Dynamics.
That's a good job.
He was working at as a engineer, space engineer. My brother. So he got my dad a job starting out as a janitor, and he loved it, man. He could talk the birds off the trees, my dad, and he got really chummy with the lady in the cafeteria. I don't know how much weight he put on from that, man. She was always giving him pies and cakes, and he got it all for free.
Oh boy.
So he'd go clean there, eat, Yeah, he had a good. And then he got your dad a job there.
Oh really?
Yeah, they got off and on relationship with that one, I'll tell you.
Because you said their relationship was
Wasn't
spotty
good.
at best.
It wasn't good, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Did our father enjoy working there as well?
Oh yeah,
Did he?
yeah. He retired from there, and he had a good little benefits from there, and it was pretty good wages for the day, and so he liked it. It was a good place to work. That's where I took your dad to work one time after I'd learned how to drive, and dropped him off and ran over. They had these posts separating where you turn to go out of it and then parking. And it was a post about this high, and I ran the car bumper over it. Got stuck. I couldn't go anywhere.
Oh boy.
So this guy came up and said, are you having trouble? And I, are you crazy? When they say, are you crazy? When do you think I'm having trouble? And I told him my husband worked inside the place, and he could get in because you had to have a badge to get in. It was, government place. And so he went in and told your dad, your wife is stuck on a post in the parking lot, and so we need to do something with the car. So he comes out, jacks up the car and pushes it off. And I'm on my way. And I didn't get over hearing about that one for quite a while.
I can imagine.
How many people can do that?
Yeah, not many.
That was so.
How did you do it?
I don't know. I still don't know. It was an old car. I know it was one of those old high-up models, but
Blame the car.
it wasn't the car. It was the driver.
That's fine. All right, so I love pizza. I brought you some pizza from this place in Omaha called Orsis, and I just absolutely adore their pizza. You loved it, and you mentioned that it reminded you of the pizza that you used to eat at a place where I believe you worked.
Yep.
And talk about that a little bit.
That was I cooked the pizza in that place.
You actually cooked the pizza.
I was cooking steaks and just like I knew what I was doing. And pizza, we had ravioli. I didn't make that. It was there, already, but pizza, we had a pizza machine with a roller. I was rolling the puppies out, and putting them out like I don't know how many at a time. And they had that nice big crust like that, and then a lot of stuff on it. And the guy, my boss, was Alfred Pasqua.
That's pretty Italian.
Yeah. So I remember his mother used to call with an Italian accent, and she'd say, "Is Alfred there?" She was.
Is that your best Italian accent?
Well, that's the best I could do, but that's the way she sounded. And so yeah, old Al, he was something else.
What was he like?
He was fun. He was younger. I mean, he was older than me, but he was younger. So we had a lot of fun in the kitchen. Half the time we'd run into each other and all. And he was kind of a rounder. He was married, but I could tell. Wouldn't take much.
When you say rounder, you
Well,
mean he liked the ladies?
Yeah, he liked the ladies. And he had horses, and he was kind of like you'd think of an Italian dude, So he was good looking, but I was married, he was married, and that ain't going to happen. And his wife was very nice.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'd make pizzas and cook, and sometimes I'd be in charge of the whole thing. I'd have to be
He wouldn't be there, you're saying? Or?
Yeah, I'd have to be doing it, and once in a while there would be another guy there with me cooking, but much. And then of course he had all these Italian people coming and delivering, that were just as flirty as he was. Oh.
Do you ever think any of these Italian people he had coming in were associated with
I often wonder, because one time he hadn't seen this cousin of his, and he told me before he came, my cousin's coming. I haven't seen him for a long time. And I wondered why. And I thought, well, maybe he was in prison, So he comes in and he goes up and hugs him and does that Italian stuff. Goomba, and he's kissing him, and they're just like they hadn't seen each other for a while. And boy, that food better be good for him, So we made sure it was anything he wanted and all free. And he looked a little on the rough side. I think there was some connections there somewhere.
Interesting. Was that your first job?
No, my first job was, my first job I was 13, babysitting in Gardena, taking care of these kids. My brother Butch got me that job, and it was for the summer to make money for school clothes.
How many kids?
2 kids, and I was in full charge.
No other adults there?
No,
you.
They both worked.
Okay.
There you go. This is where everything's at. Have fun. So there I was, and so I took care of 2 kids and went home on the weekends.
How old were they?
The kids were like probably 5 and 4 or 3 or something like that.
Ooh, that's pretty young.
Yeah, they were young. I was young enough to keep up with them, so that was my first job, and I bought all my school clothes. And then the other job I had, I'd do a little babysitting. And then after your dad and I got married, he didn't want me to work. He did not like that.
Very traditional about that value.
Yep. So, but then I got a little job in this little teeny restaurant that I wasn't very good at, but and that didn't last very long.
And that was not the pizza place. That was
This was a different one, just like a little teeny diner.
So like they serve diner food, typical stuff. And what was your job? Were you at the front? Were you cooking the food? You were cooking the food
and serving it, doing the whole thing.
Wow.
And I was still pretty young, just a teenager. So, yeah. And then after that, I didn't work. And then I got this job at the Capri because my sister worked there. And then she got me a job, and so, oh, brother. So I met some characters in that place.
What's the Capri?
That was the restaurant, Alfred Pasqua.
Oh, okay, okay, that's right.
The Capri restaurant where those pizzas were made.
Right.
Yeah.
And some colorful characters there.
Oh boy, they were, and customers too.
Yeah.
Then I got to making pies, and taking my own pies in, so he could sell them, and people were buying them like crazy, And this guy came up telling me, what? One guy came up and said, "That's the best steak I ever had," and I didn't know what I was doing. So I just said, well, thanks, and he gave me a tip, and then one guy came up and said, that pie is really good, but my wife makes a better crust. I thought, well, whatever,
Thanks.
So then I started working on the crust a little bit more, I don't know why I started selling pies there, but I didn't get the money for them.
I was going to ask you, did he throw you a cut of the money?
Yeah, I just
Nothing?
said, here, that. I think maybe he might have paid me for the pies, but I can't even remember how that worked
If
out.
he built it into your check, maybe.
Yeah. So.
Shrimp. What were some other your favorite foods as a kid to eat? Like, when you were.
Oh, my favorite food my mom made was rice and riffles. I love my favorite dinner she ever cooked, and she always made it for my birthday because it was a chicken soup with these really thick noodle things, and just and a little bit of rice. And she said her mother used to make it, and her mother got the recipe from Germany, and that's where the riffles came from.
What are riffles? Are those
You just take eggs and mix flour with it and a little bit of salt until it gets real crumbly, and then drop it in the soup, and usually they come out about like that or a little bit bigger.
Okay.
So it's a little bit like a German version of matzo ball soup, I think. That's what I'm thinking. So
that was the favorite thing that your mom made.
I loved that the most. And she'd make spaghetti. I always loved that, and tuna casserole, which my dad hated anything pasta. Then when he got older, he loved it. So
he was more of a meat and potatoes guy.
Potatoes, yeah. He wanted all that stuff, gravy, potatoes.
Did he ever cook?
No.
Never?
No,
Never?
He could cook bacon. He taught me how to make bacon and eggs. He'd stand me on a chair and let me fry the bacon and show me how to cook that when I was real little.
So that's one of your earlier memories of having cooked.
Yeah.
Is bacon and eggs with your dad.
Yeah. And you did it. He didn't just do it for you. Oh, you're going to do it? Well, you just go ahead and do it, and I'm going to watch you do it. And this is how you do it,
Very hands-on, it
Yeah.
sounds like. What would you cook with your mom?
Well, she'd let me on Thanksgiving make the filling for the pumpkin pies, because that was my favorite dessert. So she let me make the filling for them, and then I'd help her with salads and grating. She made this cabbage salad, and I'd always grate the cabbage for her and drink the pineapple juice that we drain the pineapple. I get to drink the pineapple juice for grating the cabbage, which was a treat. And so stuff like that,
Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, I loved it. I loved being in the kitchen with her.
So as you got older, and they got older, would you cook for them?
Yeah, I used to take pies down to them. My dad loved pies. I take them pies and baked goods that I made, and then when, sometimes if I had stuff for dinner, I'd take stuff like that over. But they did pretty good up until she got really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And then he did pretty good cooking. I mean, he'd fry hamburgers and stuff like that for himself, and then he moved in with us, and I just cooked. And that's when he liked pasta. Then he'd eat it right up for me,
Probably easier for him to digest and eat and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think so. Yeah.
In your early years of marriage, who did most of the cooking?
Oh, I always cooked.
I know our father cooked
Hot
shepherd's
cake.
pie.
Yeah.
And
When he had to, though, right?
When he had to.
when he had to, when you were
Yeah.
because you were working.
Yeah, he
But
could
before
he could fry a hamburger.
anybody could fry a hamburger.
Yeah.
Before children, though, you primarily did most of the
he
cooking.
never cooked.
Never cooked.
Ever.
Never, ever,
He'd
ever.
brag on my cooking and everything, but he'd never cook. If I invite his mom and dad over, I'd make a really good meal for him. His dad would go like, "Mighty fine food, Karen," and he'd just beam like, "Yeah, she's a pretty good cook," and but he never cooked. And he told me one time we were having an argument. He said, "I didn't get married to cook," and I said, "Neither did I."
I remember, wasn't there a time when he complained about your cooking and you refused to, and this is when after us, we were living together, all of us. I swear there was a time that he complained about your cooking and you refused to cook for a whole week.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I've done that. One time he complained about, I made chocolate chip cookies, which were his favorite. And we didn't have any kids then. And I said, well, those cookies are pretty good. And he said, well, those are my cookies. I said, really? Like he wasn't going to share them, So the next day in his lunch, that's what he got. A whole lunchbox full of chocolate chip cookies.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh, boy.
He got the point.
What was his reaction?
He brought most of them home and said, would you like a chocolate chip cookie?
So that was his reaction, was humility.
Yes. I like to humble people.
That's a good quality to have.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned before that you came back here with him for a vacation, is that right?
Yeah, we came back with Paul and Heather on our famous take the trip in the car that I knew wouldn't make it vacation. The car didn't make it. We sold it in Provo, Utah.
Well, you just said Paul and Heather. Did you mean that?
I mean Paul and Jill.
Okay.
I'm so used to saying Paul and Heather.
Just for the record.
Yeah.
Paul and Jill.
Paul and Jill. Jill was 3 and Paul was 5. And we got stuck in Utah. And the radiator was overheating. It was a big mess. And so we stopped by this lake, it was a big river or something. And he had to go down a hill to get water to fill up the radiator.
Mm-hmm.
So he took this canteen he got, took it down and filled it up with water, and Paul's in the back seat going, Dad's gone. We aren't going to see him again. That's the end of Dad. You know, he thought he'd gone over the hill and we were deserted.
So he just thought he was going to drown, or he just abandoned
That was it.
you, or
Yeah,
what?
he knew that was it, and we were stuck, and that was all he knew.
How old
So,
was Paul?
huh?
How old was Paul?
5.
Yeah.
And on the way back, we had to take the bus to get here, and then we had to fly back. And, which I'm glad we did, because that trip was a disaster.
So what was your plan? You said you're coming here for a vacation. What
Yeah.
were you going to do here?
We were going to visit my mom and dad
Okay.
and see everybody here and have a good time and stay with them, you know. Well, that ruined a lot of it. And so on the bus trip back, though, and I told Paul this on the last one, it's probably repeating it, but he wanted to drink water on that bus. There was no bottled water to take with you. There was no place on the bus you could get a drink. And I said, you have to wait till we get to the next stop. And all the way through, like 9:30 at night, water got her. Water got her. That's all he did.
Really?
And he had to make that clicking noise with it, you know.
Oh boy.
Oh, yeah. Water got her. And everybody on the bus was going, I know they were thinking, will you get that kid to shut up, you know. I would if I could, people, but
Did you ever get him to stop?
no.
Until he
How do you?
went to sleep or something?
He went to sleep finally.
Wow. I was just trying to touch on the vacation aspect of it, because I was curious if you and Dad ever took vacations before you had kids.
No, because he
never-
was always working.
He
And
was always working.
he used the vacation money just for extra, usually, you know. And if we did take some time off, we just hung out.
Mm-hmm.
And but that was a year he wanted to move back here anyway. I think that was his plot. So he decided that would be a good way to do it and get me used to it again. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, so I told him that car's not going to make it. Oh, sure it will. And then he had famous shortcuts that always got us lost, and he got us lost really good in the Utah, the red dirt area of Utah.
A lot of Utah's a desert, isn't it?
Yeah, and this was very arid and getting into desert-like stuff, and it was where they had the red rocks and all that stuff. I would love to visit it if I wasn't lost, but he took a turn. I said, that's not going to get us anywhere. It's a shortcut, and we had to turn all the way around and come back. Car was not in good condition. If we'd have got stuck out there, we'd have been in trouble.
Whatever happened to that car?
We sold it in Provo, and you know the Mormon people they're really trusting, and we didn't have the title to it or anything. We said we will send you the title to the guy that bought it. I think it was some garage or something that we hadn't taken it to try to fix it, and he said okay, and we did. We sent him the title. He gave us like, I don't know, not much money, enough to take the bus anyway, and so. There we were, 2 kids stuck out there. I never did that again.
That's wild.
Well, I would never let him talk me into going anywhere in a car with him again at that long a place.
Did you ever make it here?
We made it by bus, yeah.
Oh, by
We were
bus,
in
right.
Provo, and the funny thing, God always watched out for us because we got a motel. We were able to get towed into a motel that was right by the bus station and across from a garage.
And across from a garage.
It was perfect.
Wow.
So our God has always watched out for us.
That's amazing.
He has indeed. What else can I ask you?
You want to know a little bit about your childhood and some of the things you did?
No.
You don't want to know anything about
No.
that? Well, I just thought maybe you'd like
Not
to.
this time. No, this time is going to be about you. I'm more curious about you and Dad's relationship.
It was interesting. Filled with love most of the time.
Did he always want kids?
Yeah, he knew that I wanted him. Little secret there, I never told anybody. But I found out. Because before we got married, I said, I want kids. And I want to make sure that you're going to be able to have them, So he said, okay, and I'll go get tested. And said he went and got tested and that he was just fine. He wasn't.
Oh, he wasn't?
No, because that's what was holding us up for 15 years.
So he had a low sperm count?
Yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't that it was low, it was that they were not mobile enough.
Oh.
So he got some medicine that helped it perk up a little bit, and then how do we turn this stuff? How do we turn this stuff off?
Funny terminology there, Mom.
Oh well, I don't know how else to say it, but
Didn't the doctor say that you couldn't have kids, and that's
Yeah.
why you adopted Paul and Jill?
yeah, that's why. I went in, and my fertility test turned out fine, but his turned out like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I found out that he had pretty much told me an untruth.
Oh,
before
so
got-
he.
His test?
He told me the first test he never got, really.
Oh.
And he said it was fine.
So when I say the doctor said you couldn't have kids, it was primarily because of
Yeah.
him?
That was it.
Okay, I never knew that.
Yeah. So, but he did, this fertility doctor I went to said there's the stuff we can give and try to see if it'll help him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, so
And it did.
something must have worked, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
So then it's like, can we turn it off? And it never stopped. So finally it did.
Yeah. What did you enjoy most about, or what do you enjoy most about being a parent?
I just loved the family feeling, you know,
Mhm.
and then having people to take care of, and kids are so interesting to me, you know, watching them, how different each of them are, and the way they go about things, and their attitudes and their unique personalities. I always loved that, and my goal in life was to make each of you an individual and self-sufficient. When I feel like I've accomplished that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because, well, you've accomplished it, but I feel like I started you in the right direction
Right.
towards it, you know.
Absolutely. I feel like it's a good place to stop. What do you think?
Okay, all right. Well, that was...
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah,
You're
thank
welcome.
you.
And happy birthday again, Daniel.
Thank you.